Teatrul Francais din Toronto a pus în scenă și a prezentat piesa Cântăreața Cheală de Eugene Ionesco. Am fost prezenți la premieră și colega noastră, Crina Bud, a realizat un interviu cu regizoarea acestui spectacol.
Tiens, il est 9 heures. Nous avons mangé de la soupe, du poisson, des pommes de terre au lard, de la salade anglaise. Les enfants ont bu de l'eau anglaise, nous avons bien mangé ce soir. C'est parce que nous habitons dans les environs de Londres, et que notre nom est Smith.
Eugene Ionesco was born 110 years ago in a Romanian town, and his first play, La Contratissa Chauve, was performed for 70 years, evening after evening, at Hachette Theatre in Paris. But this evening we were here at Theatre Francais de Toronto for the opening night, and it was crazily funny, and it was subtly tragic, and it's not only about the text, it's only about your vision. Chanda Gibson, you are a well-known actress, but this evening you're also the director of this play. Please tell us about your choice for Ionesco and for this kind of performance.
Sure. So the project came to me via Joël Bedoz, who's the artistic director of the Theatre Francais de Toronto. In February or March this year, he pitched me the play. And at first, I was so excited because this is a play that I studied in university years ago and that really opened up theater for me and what theater could be and what comedy and tragedy and absurdity could be when I was more familiar with the very realistic genre. And it just opened a world of the absurdist writers that came into vogue in the 50s after the Second World War. So when he asked me if I was interested in directing it, I said yes. I mean, I absolutely loved it. But then I also was terribly scared because it has such a reputation. People know this play. You know, you study it in school, you study it in high school, even university. Many people have seen the performances at La Hachette and elsewhere. So there was this immense fear that crept upon me. But then I sat with it and I read the play several times again to refresh my memory and just started being creative with it and seeing how it spoke to me and how it spoke to the audiences of today and what kind of parallels I could tie into today's reality, today's audience, and what influences us today.
And you played also with our Canadian condition as bilingual speakers.
Yes, absolutely. So there was something in the script that spoke to me about the multiplicity of language because it's been translated in so many languages and it's so universal that I thought, I want to bring that into the play. So I wanted to add English and Italian and a little bit of German and just have it be a little more connected universally. And the themes that I chose to parallel in today's society had to do with tragedy. If you think about the current climate politically or the current climate with the crisis and climate change that's happening around us, there are elements, allegoric elements in that play to me, like Mother Nature or like fire. You know, the fireman to me was fire. And then Mary, which I kind of transformed into a cantatrice, was a little bit of an allegory for Mother Nature. So that was one parallel that we drew and that we could really push on and explore.
C'est écrit que Bobby Watson est mort.
Oh mon Dieu, le pauvre! Quand est-ce qu'il est mort?
Pourquoi prends-tu ces terres données? Vous savez bien, il est mort il y a 2 ans. Tu te rappelles, on a été à son enterrement il y a 1 an et demi.
Bien sûr que je m'en rappelle, moi je suis rappelée tout de suite. Mais je ne comprends pas pourquoi toi-même tu as l'air si étonné de voir ça sur le journal.
Ça n'était pas sur le journal.
Is this play a political one as presented in the book left? You already said something about.
I think it is. I think it is partly because Ionesco, when he wrote it shortly after the Second World War, there was a lot in culture and in climate and politically that had been devastated by the war. And I think that grotesque and tragic reality is apparent in the play. And not only did he deconstruct language because of it, but he deconstructed these characters. And I think that a lot of harm can happen from the political climate if we're not careful and if we don't choose to elect people who we trust and who we have hope in. So I think that has a parallel in today's society. And just the way that communication has changed and shifted, I think he was kind of, putting a statement out there that communication between individuals at that time had changed and there was a different shape to it. But now with social media and internet and text language and the electronic language, so much language has been deconstructed even more. So how apropos is it in today's society and how we communicate and how language is fluid? So I wanted to explore that with the actors.
And you succeeded, that's for sure. And I would like to ask you, in the first scene of the play, Miss Smith speaks about a Romanian grocer specialist in yogurt.
Yes.
And she intends to buy une grande marmite de yaourt roumain folklorique.
Yes.
Could you give us or to our Romanian audience some reasons to come to see this extraordinary play?
I think that Eugene Ionesco left a legacy for Romanians. I think he left a legacy. He had to leave the country because of the First World War. When he was a child, that's what made him and his family flee. And he had to leave and go to Paris, like many of your ancestors probably had to do. So he, in something I read and in an interview I watched with him, he said that he, at a very young age, as of 6, lived in fear and was terrified of living and would hear bombs. And I think that's just horrible. No one should grow up that way, but that was his reality. And for somebody to immerse themselves in literature and in fiction and in stories and have such a creative spirit shows so much resilience and so much creativity. And I believe had it not been for the war, maybe his family would have not left. Maybe they wouldn't have settled in France. Maybe they would have stayed. But that was his reality. And maybe that little yaourt, Romanian yaourt, is maybe his way of doing a clin d'oeil, to his ancestors and his roots.
Yeah, and maybe to our special gift to combine. We know how to laugh, but we know how to cry at the same time.
And it's important to do that because in comedy there can be such tragedy. And often we don't see the true comedy if we can't see the tragedy. And we are all tragic humans and we are all, we all have a sense of humor as well. And we are all resilient in our own ways. And I think he was immensely.
Périt avec le bateau dans les vagues, il ne survit pas.
Tu ne peux pas comparer un malade à un bateau.
Pourquoi pas? Le bateau a aussi ses maladies. Comme ton docteur.
Tiens, je n'y avais pas pensé. C'est peut-être juste. Et alors, quelle conclusion en tires-tu?
C'est que tous les docteurs ne sont que des charlatans. Et tous les malades aussi. Seule la marine est honnête en Angleterre.
Mais pas les marins.
Naturellement.